What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Inconsequential Gaming. So, today we're doing things just a little different, and I know that I said I probably wouldn't be back anytime soon, but I wasn't expecting to have all the time in the world. So, I've made a lot of progress on a lot of things I've been working on, and I figured that I would share some of them with you. Um, However, to give you some insight on kind of how my mind works, I wanted to kind of let you all in on my thought process and kind of like what goes on up in this noggin of mine, because I don't know, I have an idea that it's really specific and uh, unusual, but I don't know. I don't really keep track of like a lot of Terraria content creators, and I just recently joined the forums, but I don't really go to the forums and stuff. So maybe a lot of the stuff that I do is pretty common, but I don't know. I can't tell. But aside from that, I wanted to share with you some really interesting things that I found. And with those interesting things, I'm going to build some interesting structures and make an interesting world. And as I was talking about before, this is going to consist of a luxury map and an adventure map. So I guess without any further ado, let's just let me show you what I mean. Okay. So what you're watching here is just the construction. It's almost finished, but this is the construction of one of the luxury homes that I'm building for this map. And to explain myself, I always say that the way I play Terraria in my own time, this is when I'm not recording, this is when I'm not playing with friends. It's just me by myself. I don't I don't have to answer to anyone. Uh, I don't have to dig for anything. I don't have to be helpful or anything like that. It's just me, and I get to do whatever it is that I want. What I like to do is just find a nice, beautiful looking location, and just have my character just stand there and do nothing for 30, 45 minutes, and then move to a different location. And I've had many maps that were built specifically to do that, but it Terraria was still kind of in its infancy, and my relationship with the game was kind of strange because I was still playing on older maps, and I didn't really know about a lot of the updates because, like I said, Terraria doesn't. I said this in another video, but Terraria doesn't really have a tutorial, so I had to find out through very specific means just how many kinds of blocks, uh, types of materials, machines, wires, and all of that Terraria actually had compared to what was accessible on the map that I was still playing on. So what happened with that is I was working on an adventure map and I ran into a brick wall, and I kind of stopped because I was like, oh well, if this is the limitation of what it is that you can do in this game, maybe this map's not worth making. And I was really heavy into it at the time, and I really wanted to finish it. So I heard rumors of updates, and I was just hoping that, among the other cool stuff, like probably more bosses and weapons and armor, that they would take people who like to do builds into consideration. The funny thing is a lot of the additions were helpful to me, and it allowed me to do a lot of the things that stopped my progress. But I also found out doing the research that a lot of the items that I was saying, oh, it would be cool if Terraria had this or that, were already in the game. I just didn't know it because I was still playing on an old map. Terraria can be really unforgiving sometimes. But as you can see, um, well, I don't know if you followed my channel, but my creations have gotten a little bit more elaborate over time. At least from what you can visually see from what I'm sharing. My builds have always been pretty elaborate, but a lot of times I was not taking shortcuts, but I was taking other people's time into consideration. So there's only so much time you can spend building a structure when you're playing with someone else before it becomes overbearing. So this is kind of the stuff that I build when I don't have to answer to anyone. And when I'm playing by myself, these are the type of locations that I build, or locales that I create. And for me, scenery is everything. So why am I sharing this with you specifically? Because people build stuff all the time. Like, we're not impressed, Toxopholite. Well, this is the difference. Because of the vast amount of research that I've done with this game, I found a lot of interesting things that other people have found, and I found a lot of interesting things on my own. Now, I don't know how many of these things are common knowledge, how often they get used when people make builds. All of this is just knowledge that I absorbed because it pertained to something that I wanted to make. So it might not necessarily be new information, but it was just information that allowed me to kind of take my building and creativity to the next level. So I would say from the very few people that I watch, right? There's one thing that I noticed that a lot of people who build things don't do specifically, and that's pick backgrounds. Like, for example, as you can see with this luxury home, the background is the beyond the paradise line, or the ocean biome. Now, I have terms for a lot of the different things in Terraria that assist me with building very specific structures, because it's not just about how pretty it looks, and not how fancy. Like, I'm more of like functionality and the overall like feeling that the structure gives. Like, I like to create a whole mood, right? And the background is one of the most important things. Now, the thing with Terraria is it's really restrictive sometimes, because, for example, with the paradise line, right? I call the paradise line the intersection from where the ocean biome starts and whatever biome that led to the ocean biome ends and begins. So it's a very fine line. It's really no different in some ways to the space stratosphere height, or a certain height where you start getting attacked by harpies. Sort of what I would call it, the cloud line, the cloud island line, right? And then you have the cavern line, and then there's a lot of different types of depths and certain distances from left to right that trigger a lot of different things. It's really specific in Terraria. For example, something simple like the space height line, right? Or the cavern line, most people know about. But there's even lines that trigger certain types of enemies. So, for example, because I tend to play on larger maps, I don't know if it applies to all. But for example, on a larger map, there's about, when you get about, I would say, if you consider the very middle of the map the center, and you were to divide the map into 5 parts: the center, the far left, and then the end, and then the center, the far right, and then the end. About towards the far right or far left, depending on where things are on your map, you can trigger a lot of events, a lot of enemies, and this is aside from the biome. That's what it's really tricky, because a lot of times the biomes that you traverse through can conceal the fact that just going to a certain limitation or a certain line or height or a certain distance left or right towards the map also have their own triggers no matter what biome you're in. And it's interesting because maps have really specific rules, so a lot of times it'll mask what's actually what the game is capable of, or what really odd sequences that you can see if you understand a lot of these really small details about Terraria. Now, I went on this rant about something that probably seems so inconsequential, right? And you'd be right, sort of, right? But here's the thing. The reason the paradise line, for example, is so important to me is because you can actually create a tropical zone, right? If you know what you're doing. If you know exactly where the paradise line is on your map, immediately where the intersection from where the ocean biome starts and the any other biome begins, you can create a tropical zone. And it takes, I guess, I just experiment. I asked a lot of questions. I just did a lot of experimenting. But why is the tropical zone important? Well, what if you want to create a resort? For example, I want to create a resort, right? But most people probably know that the paradise line, I don't know, it's really tricky. It doesn't really work to the player's advantage, and it's not a lot of real estate there. You can run out of real estate really fast because it's a really small section of most people's maps, right? So how much you can actually fit there really depends on how well you know the game. And that's kind of one of the tricks. You have to know like these very specific things that might seem inconsequential unless you want to do something very specific. And that's kind of one of the benefits of me running into so much trouble trying to build my adventure map is I wanted to do these very specific things. So I had to learn these very specific, typically like, why would you want to know that type of stuff? Like, because typically in Terraria, like if you want to build something, you just kind of build it. Like you get the blocks and you start building. But the thing is, when you want to create an experience, though, it requires you to have a little bit more knowledge of how the game works on a micro level. Like you have to micromanage a lot of different stuff. And the thing is, I've done it so much to the point where like I make mistakes here and there, but I always play test everything that I do, because where the background line meets the structure and how the sun rises and all that stuff's important to the experience. So like if I build a structure like too high, it's a lot of little details that can get messed up. But I've come up with so many different techniques. It doesn't bother me. It's just the annoying thing is just getting it right, because with Terraria, like it takes a while to get stuff right, because it can be really unforgiving, especially if you get attacked by a boss while you're trying to build stuff and things like that. But so this paradise line, if you know how it works, you can actually create a tropical zone. And one of the things that I want to do, possibly in this map, I'm not sure if I'll have all of the time. If I have enough time, I'll probably create a resort. And the cool thing about being able to create a tropical zone is that you can make an entire resort using the real estate of the where the paradise line starts and ends, and you'll be able to get all of the luxury of the things that the tropical area. Well, I would say the paradise line gives you. Like for example, okay, so let me explain that a little better. So the thing that makes the tropical zone or the paradise line where the tropical zone can start so special is that sand behaves a little differently. A lot of things behave a little differently in that in the ocean biome, for example. Like once you pass the paradise line into the ocean biome, for example, the sand won't create a heat wave. It won't generate desert enemies. You won't get sandstorms. Um, it doesn't produce cactus or water leaf. No matter how deep you pack the sand on, it's always going to produce palm trees for the most part. Um, I haven't left. Uh, I haven't left the beach side alone enough to know if starfish and seashells are naturally growing structures, kind of like bushes and things in the jungle. But you can just place those there, so it's no big deal. Like usually, I'll just go to a different map, steal as much stuff from there, like seashells and all that, and to just place them wherever it is that I want. It's one of those things where I've been doing this enough where I have my little tricks, but yeah, it behaves a lot differently from a desert, which I guess doesn't need explaining. But the part that is interesting is that if you know exactly where that line starts, you can create a very interesting integration between the ocean biome and another biome. And if you do it just right, you can create a tropical zone. And that's one of the things that I like to do. I haven't really implemented it into a map yet, not even one of my own personal maps. And I think I wanted to do it in this one. And then if I do, it's going to be to create a resort because, as I said before, you'd be surprised at how very little real estate the ocean biome has. Like you can run out of space really fast. So that's why I'm always trying to be creative with how it is that I use my space. And this comes with just, as I said before, running into so many problems. There was a time when I used to be so frustrated that I used to run into every problem you can possibly think of when creating maps and stuff. But I'm so glad that I did, and I'm so glad that I did early before the game became this huge phenomenon. I mean, it was already a huge phenomenon, but you know what I mean? Like the Moon Lord update pretty much like is the definitive version of Terraria. Like no matter how much you love this game is just not the same without the 1.3.5 updates. Like that just took this game to a whole nother stratosphere. So I'm glad that it took me all the way up to 1.3.5 to really grasp a lot of the things about Terraria that I didn't understand, because it allowed me aesthetically and functionally to accomplish a lot of the things that I really wanted to accomplish. And so there you are. Oh, and just to point out, I know my character isn't sitting down, but I'm looking forward to being able to sit, because this is how I play the game. I would want my character to sit down in the study, just like my character's standing now, but I'm kind of acting like he's sitting, and then just have the bestiary open and just spend probably 45 minutes reading the bestiary, moving to a different location, and then if the bestiary is linked to some other type of journal with missions and updates and maybe lore, that would be cool, having lore, then just read that. Because all I do, like I said, when I'm playing by myself is just stand there anyway. So, I mean, why not look up the bestiary? But, aside from that, there are some other things that I do want to show you. So, another thing that I've been working on is ambient lighting. Now, I had no idea just how elaborate the lighting system was in Terraria, because as I said before, like the game doesn't really like tell you anything about like just how far you can go with this game. Like it just kind of, I mean, what it does introduce you to is pretty phenomenal, but what you can do aside from what the game shows you, it's sort of like it's not even like next level. It's sort of like it's almost a different game. Like it's almost as if I would say, oh man, I was gonna say something obscure, and I want to make sure. But just imagine, right? If you were playing Dark Souls, right? The first Dark Souls, and what the game shows you is cool. You can beat it. You can play through it. Most people are familiar with the game now. It's pretty popular. But what if you found out that if you knew the game a little bit more extensively, you can go through all three games. Like from Dark Souls 1, you could go through 2 and 3 without buying the other two games, but you had to know this very specific thing. And you got access to way more lore because they bled into each other rather than being separate games. So it kind of integrated into each other. It's sort of like, that's the best way I can describe what Terraria really is compared to what it is that you're shown with just the vanilla game. Like, it really gets that deep. So when I talk about ambient lighting, I mean, I guess it's not really the fault of the developers. Like, I guess when a person's building something and they're getting creative, they don't want to hold your hand and tell you, oh, you can do this and that. Like, they want you to kind of come up with your own stuff. But it's like I said before, I was playing on an old map and I had no idea these things existed. It's just that it took a long time too. I started my adventure map probably way back in 2016, and all of the information that I've been collecting over the years has been very specific small things, because I wanted to do very specific and small events. And it's sort of like those little small details were important to the overall experience, like whether a certain cavern layer was one height too high or too low, where it intersected with another area. Those things were very important to me. And there was a time in Terraria where, I would say, I'm gonna give a hot take, but I would say that even the developers were still trying to figure out what this game was, and they were learning right along with the community as we kind of. I won't include myself because I've been probably radio silent for a majority of my Terraria experience. Like, this has been a real internal experience for me. Like, I wasn't really ready to share like most people. I would say the most that I've done probably publicly, and not really it being a publishing format like something like YouTube, but interacting with other players, mostly going to servers and doing PvP. Like, that's about as far as it went. I did a lot of server surfing and server hopping, and I saw some pretty amazing things. It stuck with me for a long time. Like, I'll give an example. I think what happened is a bunch of players were working together to fight probably some really difficult bosses, right? Like, I think this is before there was an achievement for fighting all the mechanical bosses at one time. But I believe they tried to do that. And, I deduced it by how much detail I paid attention to. Because when I went to this world, there were all these tombstones all over the place. And they had everyone's names and how they died. And I saw a pattern where they were mechanical bosses that killed them. This is a really intricate story. I won't tell all of it, but it was really cool because I actually ended up meeting one of the people's gravestones who I was particularly interested in person. Well, not in person, but I met them. I met them on a server, and we actually played together for about an hour and some change and everything. It was really fun. I had a really unique introduction to this game. Aside from that, I saw some really interesting, once in a lifetime things. Like, imagine a new person, because these are veteran players probably, so they're not thinking anything of it. They're just fighting bosses and just having a good time and just going to servers and, you know, playing with other people. But imagine a new person who's still trying to figure out the game coming to a world that's half destroyed. You know, it looks like someone, you know, ransacked a village and it was not on fire, but like it wasn't, structures weren't all the way finished being built. Parts of the ground were blown out, and then you just see just tombstones scattered all over the place. And it looks like and it's just about to be nighttime, and you have to find. And I'm still low level at the time. I'll point out that I had pretty powerful equipment, some hard mode weapons, but I only still had five hearts. Yeah, so it was, yeah, I was introduced to this game in a really odd way. But so my first thought is to find shelter because I don't want to die. And by this time, like, I understand the difference between, I think I understand the difference between a blood moon and an eclipse. So I'm really trying to find shelter. But man, it's like experiences like that. I probably didn't explain it well, but what I'll say is experiences like that really inspired me to look at this game in a different way. And I know it probably doesn't show. Trust me. I can understand if you're not impressed. I get it. But what I'm saying is the end product is much bigger than just like something like this luxury home. I want to really convey to another person, right, who might be interested in this map, the reason it is that I look at Terraria through the lens that I look at it. Why it is that I can play the game and enjoy myself just by taking a character, going to a beautiful locale, and just standing there. And to be honest with you, I do that probably in a lot of games. I did it a lot in Elder Scrolls 2. When I downloaded, I'm sorry, Skyrim, Elder Scrolls Skyrim. I did it a lot, especially after downloading a bunch of mods where the NPCs were a little bit more talkative. They were a little bit more lifelike. I added a bunch of mods to make the experience a little bit more immersive. And I kind of felt like, and I've said this in other videos, that Terraria, it's strange to me. Even though Terraria is this 2D world, it's really immersive, right? And now I can get into why it is that this is important to me, because with these new updates, as you already know, a lot more immersive things are going to be added that are going to add to the atmosphere and ambience that I already enjoy with this game, because I can get immersed in this 2D game somehow. But now we're going to have wind effects. I'm going to be able to fly kites, just have my character stand there and just fly a kite for 45 minutes if the wind keeps up. You know, set up a beautiful pinwheel mechanism, have wind socks, and a weather vane on top of the house. If there's a really bad windstorm, maybe the weather vane will go crazy. You know, I have no idea what they plan to do specifically, but a lot of the little details that I noticed in the spoilers had me excited, and this is why I'm creating structures like this. Now, I was creating structures like this on my own time, but I will admit a lot of the adjustments that you see where there's a lot more furniture, that's in preparation for the update, because characters are probably going to be able to sit on sofas too. I don't know. I just saw chairs. Maybe sofas will still be, you know, one of those furniture items that you can't interact with. But I don't know. I just tried to hope for the best. But there are enough chairs to where if I'm playing with other people, we can all sit at the same table. And that's something that I would have never considered, because I didn't think that the developers were thinking about the game on a level like that. I mean, there's no way I could have predicted that. Now here, oh boy, I still have work to do on the island itself to make it a little bit more elaborate. But as you can see, Man, look at just how much real estate that yeah, that the ocean biome like has. Like it's like going from one end of this luxury home all the way to the other. About, I would say, this distance of this specific living area all the way to the end is probably the very small amount of real estate that's left over to still build on. So yeah, it's important to know a lot of small details about this game if you want to do really elaborate things like tropical resort. I did want to point out one thing. The resort really caught my attention, or it was something that I was interested in building for myself, mostly because I feel like in the vanilla game, just when you generate a map, that even though there's a lot of aquatic items, like there's the flippers, the breathing reed, the diver's helmet, the jellyfish necklace, and then a lot of things that you can tinker from it, I really feel like water exploration is severely underexplored. And if you want a proper experience in Terraria, when it comes to underwater exploration, you would almost have to create your own kind of yeah, you would have to create your own experience. Like you would have to, I would say, probably dig out an area, make probably the most reasonably deep body of water that you can, and probably put something really cool down there, like an underwater castle, or maybe some cool items. But it would mostly be, I guess, for other players to explore. And because that's not necessarily an adventure map um angle that I want to that I want to kind of take a look at. It's, see, the thing is like it interests me, right? But it doesn't fit the theme of my adventure map. Maybe if I make a new one, I have to finish the first one first, but maybe, but I still feel like it's severely underexplored. So one of the things that I want to do in a resort is at least make swimming a common thing, where it's not like just these shallow puddles where you can drown because it's too dark, or you're being bullied by enemies, so you don't know whether to come out and take a breath or stay down, or like maybe you've already discovered the little air pocket exploit, so that's not something you're worried about. It's just it's just severely underexplored and underrepresented, and you'd be surprised just how cool a lot of the aquatic items are in this game if you kind of morph the map into a water world the way that you want it. Now, I haven't quite done that with any of my own personal maps because, like I said, it's a cool concept, but it wasn't really something that I was interested in, because I could theory craft a lot about how far that can go, but it would be novel at the end of the day because I would be the one creating it. So there would be no surprises, like I would already know what was under the water. Like it wouldn't really, like the whole point of diving, deep diving, is the fact that the world is supposed to be a mystery under there and you don't know what you're gonna find. And unlike the other parts of the map, like the jungle and the underwater, not the underwater, but the sand caverns with the the insect hives, it's pretty much the same biome, but you never know what to expect. Like, just how deep does this hive go? Does this hive accidentally lead into the dungeon? Like, you don't get that same experience with underwater biomes. Like, either there's a water chest there or there isn't. Either there's some kind of piranha or fish that are going to attack you in there, or they're not. And then maybe you'll fish there if there's enough space and opportunity and your equipment is good enough. Like, that's pretty much all there is to it. And then maybe with the ocean biomes, where the ocean really isn't even all that deep. And the worst thing that you have to worry about is the jellyfish. Well, on expert mode, the jellyfish are actually pretty, yeah, they're pretty tough. But, you know, the jellyfish and the sharks. And that's pretty much it. But all of those can be exploited. I don't know. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that I do want to explore water, at least the movement that you can have at least somewhat of an experience with in Terraria. Like, at least make the water deep and at least make it attractive. And swimming is kind of like, it's still gonna be novel, I'll be honest, but I would say the experience that I want to give to players and myself is a little more, it's a little deeper than, see what I did there, but it's a little deeper than what you'll get from the vanilla game, you know? Like, you'll at least have some fun, as novel as it might be swimming around, you know? So it's a small reason. I just wanted to give an example, but that's a small reason for the resort. There's going to be a lot of cool things that you can do with the resort, but as I said, it's important that it's a tropical resort because, like I said, I'm really big on backgrounds and moods and lighting and things like that. So, as I said, because you can easily and very quickly use up a lot of real estate when it comes to the ocean biome, and trying to find that healthy balance between that and the paradise line, you have to be really meticulous with how you build things, and you have to plan. Well, at least I do. I know there's probably way more talented, you know, people who build things and, you know, in one day, and they know all of this stuff. But for me, it's a process. You know, I don't have the talent to just whip together these amazing structures. It's not where my talent lies. So, but yes, either way, water exploration, or I would say water maneuvering, is its own thing, and I want to explore that a little bit, even if it's going to be novel, because as I said before, like, you're not gonna get that in vanilla Terraria. Like, mostly you'll get shallow ponds, and maybe there'll be a little bit of swimming that you'll need to do in the deep caverns. It seems to happen more often in hard mode that I've experienced, that you might do a little swimming. But I feel like by that time, you already have, like, you know, yeah, you have a lot of the better items. You know, like the one that turns you into a merman and all that stuff by that time. I don't know. I feel like, you know, I'm not gonna complain. I'll just move on from that. But again, swimming, resort. It's something that I want to add, but trust me when I say it's not the highlight to the resorts. It's just one of the things that I wanted to explore was water movement, because you rarely get to see it in vanilla Terraria. So the thing with this luxury map is it's a direct contrast to my adventure map. Now, with the adventure map, I did want to create almost the same feel. Like, I want it to be an experience, right? But like I said, I personally, when I'm playing by myself, I like to just take in the world around me and just stand in one spot and do nothing. Oh, and as you can see on the far left, there's like this whole gaping area. Yeah, that's a glitch that can happen when you're trying to build a tropical zone. And, you know, there's a trick around it, but it's one of those things where I've never really seen it explored, because it's something really cool that you can do with that. and I haven't really seen too many people talk about it. So this is me showing an example of where the paradise line is. You can measure it exactly, and one step from this little marker that I'm making to the left, like you're in the desert, and to the right, you're in ocean biome. So there's the paradise line. So that's what I mean visually. Like if what I was saying was mysterious. Like the thing is like when you're a creator of maps. I guess I don't have to tell you like you kind of look behind the curtain. Like I see that line when I'm building already, but you know I was physically building it just to kind of give an example, but I kind of see it in the same way, like, and I don't know if this is going to be an obscure reference, but like, you know how in a fighting game, there's the character sprites or the character art, but then there's their hitboxes and stuff that you can see in the debug menu, which is really what's happening in the game, and the characters are just aesthetic. What the characters really are is just hitboxes and hurt boxes, and the size of the character usually isn't proportionate to the size of the hitbox or hurt box. You know, it's all kind of like smoke and mirrors. So yeah, that's kind of how I look at this game sometimes when I'm in the mode of creating. I don't look at it, you know, aesthetically like, oh, well, I mean, I do, like when I stand there and just kind of take in the atmosphere. But what I mean is when I'm creating an experience, I turn that off. I turn the aesthetic part off, and then I turn on the creators. I put the creators hat on, and that's when I start seeing all of the oh, perfect for the screenshot. But yeah, I see all of the you know, the paradise lines and measurements and stuff like that. So yeah, just thought I'd throw that out there. I don't know why. You know, it's also interesting. It just came to mind that the two types of maps that I want to create are kind of like perfect contrast to one another. One is, of course, made for adventure, and it's supposed to challenge you, like to be a good challenge, and you're supposed to figure out how to overcome obstacles and things like that. Where the other one's just kind of for exploration and rest and relaxation. You don't have to really worry about much other than what the game would typically throw your way. But because there's a lot more safety zones to run to or housing to run to, like, it's that much tamer. So yeah, it's just like I didn't make these contrasting projects on purpose. It's one of those things where it just kind of occurred to me that, you know what, this adventure map is going to take quite a lot to finish, because it's more of like I said, with a challenge experience that's crafted to, you know, you have to take difficulty spike into consideration, and how obscure a puzzle really is, like what you think is obscure and like what's really obscure. Like you don't want it to be too easy, but then again, it's like you don't want it to be impossible, and impossible can be as simple as making it complex and then giving no hints. And then if you do give a hint, the hint is so difficult to find that basically a person would have to guess. Or it's one of those things like, how was I supposed to know? Like, it's a lot of things you have to take into consideration. And then, of course, building my own custom engines and custom machines and stuff like that. Like, a lot of that stuff requires testing. And then the machines are one-time activating machines, because it's to progress the story forward. So then you have to, once you activate the machine and then it breaks so that you can't use it again. Well, you know, this is all happening behind the scenes. You have to restart the machine. So it's one of those things where I have to experiment with the machine to make sure it's actually doing what it's supposed to do. And then when it breaks, I have to, you know, reset it. And then It's a lot that goes into it. So what I figured is I still want to share a map and give you all a gift as a way to thank you, for tuning in and supporting the channel and stuff like that. But I knew that the adventure map, like, it's so complex that as much as I might want to get it out before the 1.4.0 update, it's probably not gonna happen. And the thing is, I'm even getting lucky with this map because I don't even think that this one. Well, it was supposed to be ready, and in January, I wanted to have it as sort of a Christmas gift. But I started adding more and more stuff, and I was hoping to get it out by January, but then I got sick, family stuff came up, like a lot of stuff happened, and the thing is, just like I just kind of made peace with the fact that, like, you know what, 1.4.0 is gonna come out, and then my map's probably gonna come out 3-4 months after the fact, and it's not gonna be ideal. I would want to debut it when the new updates come out, but it wasn't gonna happen because, like, life was just, it was just too much going on. Like, it wasn't necessarily chaotic. I had to work, and I had a social life, and between all that, I had to squeeze in Terraria, and then I was playing it, and then I have to find time when I'm not playing it to actually build stuff, and then I had to make a decision, like, do I play Terraria, or do I actually build the gift that I want to give everyone, because I couldn't do both. And then now I'm in a position where I don't have to work, well, I can't, and family's not bothering me, not that they're pestering me or anything, but it's one of the things, like, I can't really go visit family even if I wanted to. So it's one of those things where I'm kind of in the perfect position. I know it's kind of like grim to say that, but I promise, if the situation wasn't as is, it would have been impossible for me to finish this map before the update came out, because even with all the time that I've had off, when I finally get the chance, because I'm still doing things because I have to get prepared to go back into the workforce and society once this is over. So I'm still doing things, but I mean, when I do get the time to focus solely on building and Terraria and stuff like that, it still takes so much time. So I'm like, wow, for as much time as it takes to do this, and I have all the time in the world basically, just imagine how much I was squeezing in to try to get this done, and the same amount of time. Like, I would be working on like one portion of the map, trying to get it exactly right for like 6 hours. And I'm just like, wow, that took, like, it'll just blow past me. Like, I won't be counting the hours. And of course I take breaks and stuff, but it's just like 6 hours can easily just go by. Like, I'll be working on something and I'll look up, oh, it's time to eat. And 2 hours went by, right? So then I'll go back, and then I'll find a problem, and then I'll solve it, and then that took another 2 hours, and then I start wrapping up. Be like, before I finish this area, I want to make sure that it has this, and that thing. Sometimes take notes if I need to, and the next thing you know, another 2 hours went by, and that's like every single day I'm working on this thing, and I'm like, wow. 2 hours, like, at least working on this thing, is not a lot of time at all. And it's like I said, I'm not a master building genius who can, build an impressive structure in 4 hours and it's done. Like, it takes me forever to build things because they have to be really specific and all of that, and they have to be functional, and they have to be atmospheric, and everything has to be just right. I don't know, like, a lot of thought goes into the things that I make. So I don't really have a go-to. I mean, I do have some go-tos, like, it's important to have those, but a lot of my builds are considering, like, the functionality of it in the long run. Like, I'm looking to the fact that I want And these are the maps that I make. I want players still enjoying my map in 2020, like 2028, like 8 years later. I want people still exploring it because it's not, it's not just a novelty build. Like, it's a whole mood. Like, the whole map is just gonna be a whole mood, and that's kind of like what I'm going for, which is why it's taking me forever. Anyhow, yep. So this is how I play Terraria. I know, action packed, right? Interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I really wanted to share my experience with you all, as strange as it is. Like, I don't know. I just wanted to, and I promise I'll do my best to never make you suffer through this again. But as you can see, you can't, you absolutely cannot play like this in multiplayer. Like, it's not gonna work. Like, it's just, like most players want to dig and kill all the bosses and stuff. Like me, I did it. Yeah, I did do it. It's just why can't I do anything normal? Like, I didn't even do it in the normal way. Like, I killed the bosses out of order. Some bosses I killed in my world. Some in other people's worlds, and then I got the items that the bosses dropped, and then fought the boss in my world, and I was probably overpowered at that point. I don't think I've ever beaten a game from top to bottom like the way that you should. So there's a lot of things I just don't know. Like, I don't know the progression between like certain armors. Like, I know to a certain point, but once it starts getting to stuff like titanium and palladium and chlorophyte and the stuff that you have to use the ectoplasm for, and then the shroomite, I have no idea how to craft any of that stuff. Like, I have no clue. Like, I don't know what ingredients you need to gather. Like, I do know, at least for the one where you need the ectoplasm, you go to the haunted version of the original dungeon. And see, I think that's post Plantera too. I think you have to kill Plantera, and then that happens. So I don't know. It's weird. Like, I know stuff like the Paradise line. I know how to create a tropical zone. I know like the tricks to make a resort. I know tricks to get more real estate out of really small biomes, and I know tricks on how to expand space, and to create like the illusion of a very large surface area, and all the little tricks to create an experience, right? But this isn't, like, I can't even say intended, because Terraria is a Lego set. Like, the developers give you the tools to be creative, but it's strange, the tool set that I have, or the really specific and inconsequential knowledge to a certain degree that I have, compared to the base game knowledge that probably every other player knows about, because you're supposed to, because it's Terraria. I'm completely like oblivious to it. That's just, I don't know, I just find that really weird. I didn't want to turn this into like a whole story time or anything, but I just kind of wanted to give you all some insight on how my brain works. Like, and I'm never sure if it's going overboard. Like, am I oversharing right now to the point to where, like, oh man, this guy is crazy, or what is he doing? Like, his character's just standing there. Like, that's not fun to watch. Like, I know, I totally get it, and but it is for me. See, that's the thing. Like I understand how I won't even say the average person, but I'll say the most people that I've come across, I pretty much have to put forth the effort to understand them, you know. But I don't think too many people understand me. And the thing is, most would be like, what's so entertaining about turning a game on and just taking your character in a atmosphere that you enjoy, and just sitting them there and letting the game run for 45 minutes. What is so entertaining about that? And for me, it's the fact that, like, depending on the game, and I can kind of explain it, the world isn't the same way when you come back from where, you know, when you come back from where you left your character, especially in Terraria. But that was also true in a game like Skyrim, especially with mods, you know? I don't know, I just like being immersed. Like, everything doesn't have to be about killing the next boss. Like, sometimes I just want to, have a tea party or a pizza party, because it's going to be possible now. Because you can actually sit, as you can see, I've taken the future updates into consideration with these resorts and this luxury housing. Like, I'm building things in a way where, and I guess that's the whole point, is I want to see if I can successfully convey the way that I enjoy Terraria to someone else. Like, here you go. This is why I like to sit in the same. Well, you can't sit, but you'll be able to sit in the update. But this is why I like to take my character and quote unquote sit them in one space for 45 minutes, and then come back and then move them to a different location and sit there for 45 minutes, But I have some. See, that's the thing. This isn't going to be a sightseeing simulator or a walking simulator. I'm also building machines in this one, like not super complex machines like I am in the adventure map, but this is a legitimate luxury map. So there's going to be, I forgot to tell you. So I do also create mini games. And as you know, I mean, maybe you know, but okay, so I'll tell you just in case you don't. So I created several of my own mini games, right? And as we all know, the beach ball is getting upgraded to where you can actually play an official game of like volleyball. And then on top of that, they're adding golf to the game. So I'm taking all of that into consideration. Like, if you're asking right now, oh, do you plan on making a golf course? Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I won't have all of the tools, so I'll work around the fact that I have to get creative because I don't know exactly how it's going to work. But I'm going to get creative so that it's flexible. So I'll lay down all the groundwork, and then once the golf game itself gets released and then I have an understanding of how it works, I can make the courses much more complex or simplistic depending on what it is that I want to do. And because I know how to use up so much real estate, trust me, like, there's going to be things to do. Like, that's the thing. I guess I was a bit unfair in my assessment. Now, standing around is part of it, but sometimes I do like to have fun. So, as like I said, I created some of my own mini games, but believe me when I tell you, I'm definitely interested in playing some Terraria golf. So I'm going to incorporate that into, this luxury map too. But this is specifically a very luxurious and easygoing rest and relaxation map, designed to kind of convey what goes on up in here, like the way that I enjoy Terraria, to convey that to you. And that's the thing. See, that's the cool thing. Is just because that's my goal, I have no idea how anyone's gonna interpret it. Like, you all might get a hold of this thing and then explore it, or like um, enjoy it in ways that I can't even imagine. And that's one of the things that I like about Terraria is that you can enjoy the game in so many ways. Some people build stuff. Some people like doing uh, no damage runs, speed runs, hardcore runs. You know, some people like to add mods. You know, kill all bosses. There's so much you can do. Like this is like the ultimate Lego set. You know, there's yeah, some people like doing the tower defenses. You know, there's some people like collecting all the trophies. There's just so much you can do, you know. Oh, and there's more of that glitch. It's a really cool thing that you can do with that. Like I yeah, I can't wait to show you because I figure it's interesting. Like I wasn't sure if most people knew about it or not because I haven't really seen it explored or people kind of showcase what it is that you can do because of that glitch. But I don't know. I'm guessing maybe most people know about it, but they just never considered using it to their advantage. I don't know. I don't know. Like hands up, I have no idea how other people look at this game. Like the lens that I look at this game through is probably like a kaleidoscope, the best way I can describe it. And finally, so that maybe everyone understands me a little bit, I'll be able to convey my insanity and what it is that I enjoy about this game successfully to you all. So yeah. But anyhow, so thank you very much for joining me today. I hope that you enjoy the luxury map and then eventually the adventure map once I finish it. But you know, I'm pretty confident, like with the amount of free time that I've had because of everything that's going on in the world, I might actually finish this thing on time. It might actually happen. That'll be so great. I don't want to take any shortcuts, but one thing I've been considering is maybe releasing a beta version if the game winds up being getting delayed or the map. But either way, I'm pretty confident that it should come out in time. But aside from that, thank you very much for joining me today, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.